All right, good morning. Oh, that was good, but I think we can do just a little bit better. Let's try it again. Good morning. Outstanding. All right. Thank you all for joining us here today. And I know you're coming off the month of March, and that may have been a little tough for a lot of us who are into college basketball, right? So those of you who had brackets, I don't know that many of you probably chose Virginia, but why don't you raise your hand if you did? Okay. Now, everybody give them the appropriate response for doing that. Yeah, exactly. Because the rest of our brackets did this, right? Boof. Right? My name's Dr. Levester Johnson. It's my privilege to serve Illinois State University as the Vice President for Student Affairs. And today, in the month of April, is indeed a special time and a special time period for the Division of Student Affairs and Illinois State University as we recognize our 2019 inductees into the Steve and Sandi Adams Legacy Hall of Fame. Let's give it up for that. Now, of course, no better way to kick this event off by having the opportunity to introduce, of course, our 19th president, Dr. Larry Dietz, who actually served in the role as the Vice President for Student Affairs here. So let's give it up for our president, Larry Dietz.
Well, thank you very much, LJ, and good morning to everyone. I feel like that this is Old Home Week, and I know that that's true of the inductees this morning and as well, but Steve and Sandi wouldn't take credit for this, but I was fortunate when I was serving in the VP for Student Affairs role to get to talk with them, and had a lot of other staff that did a lot of the early work that established the Legacy Hall of Fame, and I was able to work with Steve and Sandi in a very different way, but a lot of the staff worked together in making this ceremony possible. I don't think that they realized that at the time that we did this, that was really going to be the kickoff for this entire $34 million renovation, the entire Bone Student Center. The presentation in the hallway and so forth just made the entire rest of the facility look terrible. So we had to do something to keep up with your Hall of Fame presence out there. So, and I think it's coming along quite well. So kudos to all this staff who've worked to get us to this point. We're not done yet, but boy, the Brown Ballroom looks great. The other end of this facility looks great. More work to do, and then we're going to start on the rest of this floor and the rest of the second floor. And so about this time next year, you're going to see even more improvements and a lot nicer facility here. I want to say a few words about Steve and Sandi and what all this means. First of all, it means a lot in that when I first came to the university in 2011, I knew them by name. I didn't know them in person. And these two folks couldn't have been more gracious, more welcoming, and more supportive of me as a VP for Student Affairs and new to this university, and the relationship has turned into started out as a professional one, and it's a personal one now, and so it's always great to talk about friends. And even though Steve attended the university down the street, and have good friends down there and so forth, and their president and I spent a good deal of time together, and people don't get us confused because Eric's 6'7" and very thin, and I'm neither one of those. And so, but anyway, he's an alumnus of Illinois Wesleyan. But I do remember a kind of an informal ceremony that we had some time back at the end of his career here, where we informally made him an honorary Redbird because he spent all of his career here. And so that was a special deal. But Steve and Sandi remain part of the very fiber of this institution. Most of us know quite well that Steve was an inspirational leader in admissions, enrollment management, and student affairs. And he made students feel good about themselves, and he made his staff colleagues even better by setting an example through hard work, collegiality, and some good humor thrown in for good measure. Today, Steve continues to set an example and continues to inspire us, but in a much different way. And I talked with Steve before this, and he knows that I'm going to say a few words about this. Most of you probably know, but in case you don't, Steve is battling pancreatic cancer. He's 25 months post-diagnosis, which is a real hallmark. And if you know anything about this disease, that you know that that really is quite an accomplishment. The fact that he's present here today shows he's able to continue the battle and live life on his terms, and I really admire that. In between treatments in St. Louis and here in Bloomington Normal, Steve continues to spend time visiting with family and friends. He enjoys, from what I understand, an occasional trip to Schooners for the Blue Plate Special. And like most of us, he ponders the mysteries of the Chicago Cubs pitching staff. So the Sox fans in the room probably have a different opinion about all of that, but nevertheless, and he also has had the graciousness to put up with the former Chief of Staff, Jay Groves, who I think is a regular visitor to Steve. He's able to keep fighting the fight, and I think that's a testament to his will and his character, but he also has the single best support system in the world. And that person is seated next to Steve, and her name is Sandi Adams. Steve hasn't taken a single step in this arduous journey without Sandi right by his side, supporting him all the way. So through meetings with oncologists and primary care doctors and nurses, Sandi has, I'm sure, compiled enough notes to make a respectable book. About anybody else would be wise to talk with her if you have a similar journey in yourself or in your family. And I know that she would be happy to share her words with others who provide support to loved ones in need. So Steve and Sandi, I admire your courage. I celebrate each day with you. I continue to keep you in my thoughts and prayers, as does my wife Marlene, and we wish you Godspeed. The three individuals we honor today, Camille Taylor, Stan Shingles, and Diane Wolfe, all know that education occurs well beyond the classroom. That mentoring and nurturing of students produces not only high-quality graduates, but also prepares young men and women as actively engaged citizens who are ready to meet the opportunities and the challenges of today and tomorrow. Most people will tell you that the mission of a university is kind of like a three-legged stool. It's to teach students, to conduct research, and to contribute through service to a global community. And indeed, that's important, and that's the three legs of the stool of Illinois State University. I, however, prefer to go a bit beyond that, to say that the overall mission of any university, and particularly this university, is to change lives. The student, staff, and alumni of the Division of Student Affairs change lives every day, as does our faculty and other staff members, and there's no greater evidence of that than the people who are gathered in this room today. So to Steve and Sandi, you have my enduring admiration and respect. You also have my gratitude for having set this legacy program up to begin with. And to our honorees, I would say congratulations. And to all of you, I want to say thank you on behalf of a grateful university community. And of course, I wouldn't be ending my remarks like this well if I didn't say, go you Redbirds! Thank you very much.
Outstanding. Thank you, President Dietz. And I join you in extending a heartfelt appreciation to Steve and Sandi. We're so glad that you two are able to join us actually today. And at this time, why don't we go ahead and ask Steve to actually come up and share a couple of words. So let's welcome Steve Adams to the podium. All right?
You know, this is a familiar spot for me. I've been here before in this very room, and it's great to be back. It's also great to look out there and see so many familiar faces. My wife did dress me today, and if any of you on this side of the room noticed, I have one tennis shoe on my left foot, one dress shoe on my right foot. Everything has to do with cancer. I blame it all on cancer these days, so whatever you're feeling about this situation, you know that it has an overall enormous effect. Well, we've lived for 2.5 years almost, and this has turned our world upside down, but we're most assuredly still so grateful to be a part of this Hall of Fame legacy, the Legacy Hall of Fame Student Affairs. I know the nearly 20 people that have gotten inducted into the Hall of Fame since this started, and I want to say it's 8 years ago now, or 7 or 8 years ago, maybe less. Katie, help me out here. How many, or Danielle, do you remember? This is the 6th year, but the 8th year since we actually created this. So it goes back a long way, and so many wonderful people have been inducted into this Hall of Fame. I look around the room and I see so many familiar faces. I see Aaron Woodruff out there. And I see Dawn Sanner, who just got married, sitting in the front row. And I see so many other people that have come through, the Lambs, Doug and Gail, and Eric Burwell and Dan Wagner. And we could go all around the room, and Roger Can sitting in his regular seat there, and Chris Harding in front of him. Like I say, I've given many speeches in this room. And we'll try not to go anywhere nearly as long as I've gone in the past. Larry mentioned one thing about our supporters, and this is very emotional for me because we've had so much support over this last 2.5 years that we can't perhaps do anywhere near the justice that it needs to let you know how much we thank you for your prayers and your thoughts and your cards and your notes. It takes a lot out of you, but nonetheless, it puts a lot into you. It lets you know where you stand. And certainly we have come through this with flying colors. We had this beat one time, and I look forward now that the cancer has returned to going through the chemo as I have been and beating it again. We want any number of times that it's going to take for us to beat this, we're going to do it. Thank you. I want to give you just a little bit of background on how this all originated. And in order to do that, I have to tell you a little bit about Sandi and me. I officially retired 8 years ago. I do have it in my notes here. But worked unofficially for 2 more years out of the office of the president by traveling the country with Al and Linda Bowman when Al, your immediate one past predecessor, and there are certain names we don't mention when we get back in front of the podium. So we'll just act like that didn't happen if we can. But it means a lot to know that this gentleman is sitting in that position right now and has been and has done a wonderful job as the president of this university. He immediately followed me in my position as vice president, and LJ followed him as vice president. So you have one president and 3 vice presidents, or former vice president, in my case, sitting up here at the podium with you. Sandi officially ended her career with the Bloomington Public Schools as a teacher and administrator in 2002, but then joined the English department at ISU as a supervisor for student teachers, a position she held for 6 years. She was then with me on many of the occasions, if not all of them, as we traveled the country. And believe me, folks, she can really work a room, regardless of where it is. She knows how to do that. Even more staggering than the more than 70 years combined in education that Sandy and I have had, I spent my early grade school years at Metcalf Elementary School, which at the time was part of Old Main. And I've told this story before, but it bears repeating, and that is the last time I noticed Old Main is no longer with us. It was not true, however, that I was there when Old Main was built, only for its demolition. Sandy came to ISU as a student in 1962 and never left Bloomington Normal. She lived in Hamilton 916, and the last we both noticed, Hamilton has also gone by the way of the wrecking ball. The bottom line is that both of us have a rich investment in this institution. So where I'm leading with this is to say that it's been our purpose ever since we left the university to give back. And it was not difficult for either of us to recognize that we wanted to give back to the university, which had done so much for us, and give back to something meaningful as Illinois State, the institution, and certainly the Division of Student Affairs, which was the place that I spent my last 5 years as vice president. We chose Student Affairs because that's where it all came together at the end for us. We were a team every step of the way for those last 5 years, but also, of course, for the 3 decades that I spent in admissions, financial aid, enrollment management, and athletics. We wanted something, folks, that recognized the true and the complete educational experience of the student. And both of us are big believers in education in the holistic sense, not just in the classroom, but well beyond. And I think, Larry, you mentioned this just about everywhere that you go, and LJ, you know as well as I do, that education outside the classroom is every bit as valuable as the education in the classroom. In some cases, it's not worth getting into specifics about how that was the case, but nonetheless it is. And so we wanted to be a part of creating something that recognized the best of the best at Illinois State University by rewarding alumni who served as student leaders or student employees in student affairs who demonstrated success as leaders, were extensively involved, were good at building relationships, and were established in meaningful life experiences. We wanted to reward those who made a name for themselves with significant contributions while at ISU and continued to make a difference in life after the college years. So, with our careers on the line, with giving back to the institution, here we are today. Here we are today to honor Stan Shingles, to honor Camille Taylor, and to honor Diane Wolf. I want to say a special thank you today to someone, or to a group of people who put in so much work over the last few months in particular. Members of the selection committee. I think all of you recognize what an important role this is to pick the right people. And we are so grateful, as I said, to pick over 20 people or close to 20 people now who have been a part of this Hall of Fame. They will be part of that public display on the outside of this room. I assume that you will find your way to that if you have not already done so, and you can read all you want to read about the accomplishments of these 3 people. But more than that, I think it's so important for us to recognize that you are establishing your own legacy today for a job well done. Couldn't get the 2 papers apart. It's the cancer situation causes that. Make no mistake, however, about the fact that the inspiration and driving force behind the creation and implementation of the idea for the Legacy Hall of Fame rests with two very important people in Sandy's and my life. Katie Killian, Danielle Miller-Schuster. Thank you from Sandy and me. You were the ones who created this Hall of Fame. You came up with the idea. You brought it to me, and now it's carried on. So thank you so much to the two of you. And to Stan, and to Camille, and to Diane, your legacy at Illinois State lives beyond these days and beyond these years. So congratulations to all of you. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much, Steve. Really appreciate that. And our heartfelt gratitude for you actually being here and sharing this experience with us means so much. So let's give it up again, all right, for Steve Adams. Can we do that? All right, you all better hope that my papers ended up in the right order. Okay. All right. As he mentioned, we do have some criteria for individuals who actually qualify for this recognition. And he mentioned two items in particular, that during your undergraduate days, you actually contributed to student life, you were great student leaders, or you were involved in student employment within the Division of Student Affairs. And some of the additional post-graduation commitments included contributing knowledge and research and scholarship, all right, and creative pursuits, providing enduring dedication to individualized attention, promoting teamwork and respect for differences and goals that celebrate diversity, as well as enhancing the quality of life for communities through collaborative and individual action. And as we celebrate actually here today at this year's ceremony, we actually have some past recipients here with us in the audience. And I want to ask that those individuals actually stand as I call your name so that you can be recognized. And we will recognize those individuals as after they have all been called out. So we'll start with Dan Wagner. Would you please stand? Dan. Mike Shermer. I believe Bob Freitag's here as well. Bob, there he is. Yep. All right. Let's congratulate these individual past recipients. I want to make sure, did I miss anyone? I think we got everyone there. Okay. Again, thank you all for joining us again here today. All right. Now we are ready for this year's honorees. We received some amazing nominations this year and have such pride in the individuals who are going to be recognized today. So please join me in congratulating our 2019 Hall of Fame inductees, Dr. Diane Wolf, Stan Shingles, and Camille Taylor. Let's acknowledge them. Now, you know no event is complete as far as student affairs is concerned without having what? Our students involved, correct? So we have three outstanding, all right, students here who will be student hosts with us today and formally introducing each one of the inductees. I'd like to take some time right now and introduce each one of them. And I'm going to call your names out, then I'm going to describe you all, and remain standing as I call you, and then we're going to recognize them all at the end, okay? So we're going to start with Madison Ballard. Madison is a senior from Monmouth, Illinois. She's an agriculture, communications, and leadership major. You got it right, all right? With a minor in mass media. Love that, of course. Madison is an active member of Chi Omega sorority and served as the president for the College Panhellenic Council, so Panhellenic, in 2018. She also served on the Student Leader Council and as the vice president of the Agriculture Ambassadors and Agricultural Communicators of Tomorrow organization. Madison is currently searching for a job as a recruiter or communications specialist in a corporate agriculture company. So if you got a job in that area, Madison's your person, all right? Next, we have Jackie DeLamour. Jackie? Okay, Madison, you can stay standing, okay? Jackie is a junior athletic trainer major from Bartlett, Illinois. She serves as president of the Campus Recreation Student Leadership Council and as treasurer of the Redbird Officials Association. Jackie is also a campus recreation supervisor, an intramural sports official, and an intramural sports evaluator. Over the summer, she will be interning with the Major League Soccer team, FC Dallas in Frisco, Texas. Yeah, I know, how about that? Jackie plans to obtain her master's degree in athletic training and work with a Division I or professional soccer team. And finally, we have Hannah Costa. Hannah is a senior elementary education major from Schaumburg, Illinois. She currently works as a student manager in the catering area of event management, dining, and hospitality. Hannah will complete her student teaching in the fall semester in both Illinois and, get this, Eastbourne, England, okay? Upon her graduation in December, she plans to intern in the Science Education Center at a camp she attended as a child and worked for 3 years as an actual counselor. Hannah's future career goals are to obtain a position teaching elementary students. So let's give it up for these amazing students representing us today. Okay, you can be seated. Notice how they follow instructions so well. Okay. We're going to kick things off with our first inductee, and I'm going to invite Madison to come to the podium, and she will introduce our initial inductee, Dr. Diane Wolf. So welcome, Madison, to the podium.
Dr. Diane Wolf, BS 89, BS 92, MS 94, EDD 15, is proud to be a lifelong Redbird. As an Illinois State undergraduate, Wolf was president of Chi Omega, advisor to Alpha Tau Omega, worked for the Daily Vedette, and acted as Greek Relations Coordinator in the Student Life Office. Upon graduation, Wolf became the first campus safety coordinator, creating programs for Illinois State University Police and the town of Normal. It was through student affairs that Wolf witnessed the power of inspirational teachers, leading her decision to become a secondary educator. For one of her first assignments, Wolf interviewed Bloomington High School teacher Sandi Adams, wife of Steve Adams, Illinois State University Director of Admissions. That interview steered Diane to stay in McLean County. Under Sandi's leadership, Wolf learned the value of student relationships and social justice initiatives. She aided in student growth by forming several youth programs throughout the county and acted as public relations coordinator for District 87. Powerful classroom assessments became her trademark. She then transitioned to the role of professional development coordinator at the Regional Office of Education. Wolf was appointed Assistant Regional Superintendent of Schools in 2009, acting as a liaison between 30 school districts and the Illinois State Board of Education. She continued to educate teachers and administrators while promoting equitable learning for students. These efforts led to her appointment by the governor to the Illinois State Assessment Review Committee. As professional development chairperson for the Illinois Association of Regional Superintendents, Wolf helped provide free professional development to over 859 districts. Wolf is a nationally recognized speaker for several organizations, sharing knowledge of classroom assessments. In 2015, Wolf received her doctorate from her alma mater and was awarded Dissertation of the Year. Illinois State University has never been far from her view. She remains involved in the Student Affairs Division and College of Education, having served as non-tenure track professor and acting as a keynote speaker for several events. Wolf serves as assistant superintendent for Bloomington Public Schools, where her interest in education began. She is quick to say yes to advancing public education initiatives and has been fortunate to work with top professionals. She serves her community by representing educators on the Behavioral Health and Schools Board and McLean County Health Department Advisory Board. Not all of Wolf's leadership has been professional in nature. She also acted as the #1 cheerleader in her daughters' lives, serving as PTO president for their school, Girl Scout leader, and junior achievement sponsor. On the wall in her 1986 residence hall room was a quote from Athena Gibson. "No matter what accomplishments you make, someone else has helped you." That mantra remains true for Wolf. She has been fortunate to have constant support from her family and friends. Dr. Wolf resides in Bloomington with her family and husband, Dr. Ty Wolf, and will continue to serve Illinois State University in McLean County for years to come. Please join me in congratulating Diane.
I just told them I thought I was going last, so I love being a Redbird. And I have to tell you, today is really special to me. I said I wasn't going to cry, but I didn't know Steve and Sandy were going to be here. So that story you heard today is absolutely true, that when I was starting in my career here in this Bone Student Center, right down the hallway for Mike Shermer, in the Student Life office, and we were able to have this great collegial relationship in student affairs. And the director of admissions, I sat on a committee with, and when I decided to become a teacher, he said to me, "Oh, Diane, you've got to meet my wife." And so I did. And then I decided to stay in Bloomington Normal, much to my parents' dismay. And here I am. So today I want to say thank you to those of you that have known me my entire Redbird experience, which I'm very fortunate. There's very many people in this room that have known me since I lived in Hamilton Hall and have watched my career grow. I did have, and I continue to have, Athena Gibson's mantra on my wall, because I truly believe that none of us get to where we are, wherever that is, on whatever day, by ourselves. And there are three very specific things that I learned at Illinois State University, serving the Student Affairs Division, that have continued to serve me well, whatever job I have had. The first one is that it has given me a foundation that a team is better than an individual. And as I think about the opportunities that I was given as a young professional in this building and on this campus, I am amazed at the power and the thrill that I was given to fail safely in a place that would allow me to do that. And so that foundation and that team of people that had stuck with me through that entire time and deciding to become a teacher, I am forever grateful for those opportunities. Steve Smith, who nominated me, along with my dear friend Dan Wagner, we were young professionals in admissions. Dan was in admissions, I was in student life, and then, or no, Dan was in alumni, I was in student life, and Steve was in admissions for Steve, right? And we got to see students coming in, and we have been able to use those experiences in our new careers outside of student affairs ourselves. The second thing that I learned here at ISU and continue to learn is that when we start talking about giving people opportunities, the more we can give, the more we get. And so today, as you listen to me speak, if you take anything away from this, I hope that you all in your everyday life can give somebody who might just need that little extra perk a little extra. And that's what Sandi did for me. She was my lead teacher at Bloomington High School, and I had no idea what I was doing. None. I got a great college degree here, and I walked into a high school experience. I did not know what to do, and she said to me, I will never forget, on my first day, she said, "You'll be fine. I'm right down the hall." And that right down the hall made all the difference. And it wasn't too far after that, just a couple of years, that I had another person stop by my classroom and say to me, "Diane, have you ever thought about being a building administrator?" And I said, "No, never." And Dr. Barry Riley, who is now my superintendent, is the person that said to me, "You know, you really need to do that." And I came back to ISU and started my master's. And then I took a reprieve because the best teaching experience I ever had was raising my two daughters. And they're both with me today. Katie and Kelly are here. And I was able to take time with them and use the experiences that I had at ISU and continue to work for a great individual, Mark Jontry, who was not able to be here today. I name these people individually because they all gave me a view of life that I could not see for myself. But the one thing also that I learned in student affairs was about diversity. And a lot of us in our day-to-day think of diversity one way, but in student affairs, I learned diversity meant learning about films that I had never seen and music I had never heard because the UPB board was right next to my office and they were talking about stuff I didn't know. I also learned that every single person I came in contact with had a story that I could learn from. So I am extremely honored to be here today on a professional level for sure, but on a personal level definitely, because every single person that has had an impact on my life is in this room right now. Of course, it starts with my parents, who, I don't know if I was thinking about this, that the first time I came to ISU, I was bawling underneath DeGarmo Hall, that ugly, you know. And then I hated that. I still hate that building. But I'm crying underneath there, and my dad says to me, "You're gonna be fine. We're just an hour and a half away." And so it made all the difference. So my parents are here, along with my brother, who is also an ISU alum. And we have been able to share the Redbird experience quite differently, might I add. But we both had a great time here. And then, I'm not telling any of your stories. Mom and Dad are in the room. And then also two of my biggest supporters, and this is an area that Sandi and Steve, and I shared with them earlier in this week, helped me so much. When I found out that I was going to be able to have another man in my life, my husband, Ty Wolf, and my bonus son, Connor, Sandi and Steve talked to me about what a gift it is to have as many people in your life love you. And I am so thankful that Ty got the Redbird itch when we got married and is now on faculty here at ISU and continues to advance the Redbird way in the Wolf home. So I want to thank you all very much for this honor. I could never do it justice, and I will continue to serve ISU, and you all have a bright future, because ISU holds a great deal for all of us here. So thank you very much.
Oh, could you hold on a second? We're going to do the photo.
Yeah,
She's going to do it from.
Where do you want me?
I think I'm supposed to be in the photo.
Okay. Are you supposed to be in?
Okay, that's what I thought.
You can be the phone.
Let's acknowledge her again as she's walking off stage. All right, we're going to keep this rolling, and I'm going to ask Jackie to come up as she introduces our next inductee, Stan Shingles. All right, let's welcome Jackie to the podium.
Stan Shingles, 82 MS. 88 is a native of Chicago. He attended Dunbar Vocational High School and graduated from Illinois State with both a BS and MS in Recreation and Parks Administration. At Illinois State, Shingles worked as a student employee in Lincoln's Dining Center and also served as a student supervisor and usher in Braden Auditorium in the Bone Student Center. Shingles was a member of the Black Action and Awareness Committee, the Black Student Union, served as a high potential student program mentor, a Special Olympics Illinois volunteer, and was very active in intramural sports as a participant and a captain. He is still an active 30-year member of Alpha Phi Alpha fraternity. After completing his bachelor's degree, Shingles stayed in the Bloomington Normal community and worked as a child care worker for Kaleidoscope, supporting recreation and leisure programs for troubled youth in a group home setting. He then moved on to the Western Avenue Community Center and later to the Lawrence Irvin Neighborhood Center as a recreation program director. Shingles served in many community service capacities, including as a member of the board of directors for the Bloomington Normal Youth Baseball Program, member of the Bloomington Normal Cultural Festival Board of Directors, served on the Bloomington Normal Youth Service Network Committee, and as a volunteer for Special Olympics Illinois. Shingles returned to Illinois State as a graduate assistant in the campus recreation department while completing his master's degree. After graduating, he moved on to Northern Illinois University as a coordinator in the Office of Campus Recreation. Shingles is currently an assistant vice president in the Division of Enrollment and Student Services for University Recreation at Central Michigan University, where he spent the past 30 years. While at CMU, he has also held positions as assistant vice president for recreation, events and conferences, and director, associate director, and assistant director of university recreation. He also served as the interim assistant vice president for institutional diversity. Shingles has held several leadership positions in professional associations, including as president and a member of the board of directors of NERSA, Leaders in Collegiate Recreation, as state director for the Michigan Intramural Recreational Sports Association, and as president of the Mid-American Conference Recreation Directors Association. Shingles has been the recipient of many professional associations, community, and university awards, most recently receiving NERSA's highest honor, the NERSA Honor Award. In 2012, Shingles was inducted into the Illinois State University College of Applied Science and Technology Hall of Fame. Shingles is active in leadership roles in his community, including Special Olympics Michigan, United Way, American Red Cross, the Union Township Planning Commission, and the Union Township Recreation Task Force. Additionally, Shingles currently serves on the board of directors for the Illinois State University Black Colleagues Association. Shingles is also a professional consultant conducting department and divisional peer reviews for student affairs at universities across the country. Please join me in congratulating Stan.
You know, you can do this a lot of times, and I think the nerves and those kinds of things never seem to go away. You know, it's normally protocol when you're in an event like this to tell everybody to silence their phones, put their phones on vibrate. If that were the protocol here today, I was going to ignore it because I'm going to put mine right here, because if it goes off and it's a FaceTime, that means that baby girl, granddaughter Shingles has just been born. So. My son Lamar, who's a graduate of Illinois State's laboratory schools, Metcalf Elementary School and University High School, and my daughter Corey, my grandson Jayden couldn't be here because Corey's got a little bit of work to do. We thought that was going to happen on Monday, and like most Shingles women, baby girl Shingles is a little stubborn, so she hasn't gotten here yet. So if my phone goes off, I will leave you. I just want you to know that, because that means that I get to see this special moment. But let me start by saying thank you. Thank you so much for this unbelievable honor. I don't know what I can say. Anytime individuals take the opportunity to recognize you, you have to start by saying thank you. I want to say thank you to Jackie. And I only known Jackie for a brief time. She emailed me a few weeks ago to tell me that she would be introducing me. And she told me a little bit about herself, and I already feel like there's this connection and this kinship, because Jackie is currently the president of the Leadership Council for my dear friend Dawn Santa Pote. I've been saying Pote for a while, so I didn't see an accent, but that's what was in my brain. And she learned today that she shares a kinship with my wife Renee, because she's an athletic training student, and Renee did her master's here in the athletic training sports medicine program. So she has an unbelievable future. You heard some of the things that she's going to be doing, and these other young ladies up here. This is the brilliance of Illinois State University and how they prepare young people for their careers, and these young ladies are going to do very, 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 very big things. I want to take a moment to congratulate my fellow award winners, and Camille and Diane. I'm blessed to be sharing this honor with you here today and joining this Hall of Fame. And it was mentioned some of the individuals who have been involved with putting this together, but I must thank Dr. Levester Johnson and Student Affairs staff. Thank you for your hospitality and for choosing us. Us to be a part of this. I really want to thank Angel, and Angel's been great. You make it look easy. Now, I consider myself a pretty thorough person, and when I came in, I saw a missed call from my wife. I dropped off in front, and I missed the part where I had a parking space in front of the building. I've never had I had more parking tickets when I was at Illinois State than. And so I missed that opportunity. That opportunity is gone now. But maybe I could get it when I come back for homecoming or something. So, but it's just been unbelievable working with Angel. And I'm just going to tell you, Angel, I've been advocating with this guy named LJ, trying to get you a raise, and he's just been really, really, really uncooperative. So I want to thank President and Mrs. Dietz. We thank you for your leadership, your stewardship, your advocacy of Illinois State University. With the both of you, this university is in great hands, and I'm just very, very proud to be a part of it. When you're honored like this, you have to start with thanking your family, and I'm very, very lucky to have people in my life who have inspired me, and individuals in my life who have guided me in ways that I never imagined. And I'm going to start tonight with my parents. We always start with our parents, and I know, listening to Diane honor her parents who are actually here today, you always want to say the right thing. You always want to make sure that you pay tribute. But today I'm just going to say, because I feel like I'm among family, I'm just going to say I'm just glad that my parents hooked up that night, because if not, I wouldn't be here, okay? I think sometimes we forget that's kind of how we get here. So I always wanted to say that, and I always wanted to be in the appropriate forum. So among families and friends, I think I can say that. So my parents, Amos and Ethel Shingles, who raised 3 boys in the inner city of Chicago and told us we could be anything we wanted to be if we just did the right thing, if we trusted in God, and we followed the golden rule, treat people like you want to be treated. To my wife, Dr. Renee Shingles, and I call her Dr. Shingles because I'm the only person she makes call her that. Her friends get to call her Renee, okay? I have to call her Dr. Shingles. We met here a lot of years ago, that Redbird spirit. We met here over 30 years ago. She's shared my life with me, the ups, the downs, the spoils, and the trials and tribulations of life, and she's been there every single step with me. Everything that I've really accomplished in my life, she's been there with me. And we met, you know, my profession, chosen profession is sports and recreation, and my first sight of her was running down the sideline at Hancock Stadium as an athletic trainer, and I just said, boy, who is that cutie? I got to get to know her, and who would know? I'm a little slow with my game, so it took me a while to get up the courage to say something to her, but here we are now married together almost 35 years and married 27. So I was slow on that too. Just want to let you know. My oldest brother Durrell is here, and Durrell was the first to come to Illinois State a lot of years ago. And I remember when he made the trek from the west side of Chicago, came down here to drop him off with my parents and my middle brother Jeffrey. And I was like, wow, college looks like it's pretty cool. And at that time, the ratio of females to males at Illinois State, now I know this to be myth. I used to think it was true, and I used to tell people, but they said, you know, it's like 8 females to like 1 guy. And I was thinking, well, that means I could strike out 7 times and still be in the game. So and of course, that demographic was not true, but that was the urban lore of Illinois State University. So Durrell came here and set the standard, and I decided to follow a few years later. All 3 of us were here at the same time. And, you know, following my 2 older brothers set an interesting course for me as I made my way to Illinois State. We meet some great people in our lives, and I thought, you know, I was supposed to be a girl. So my parents thought, okay, one more time, we need a girl, and they got me. So I never had a sister until I came to Illinois State, and I met Mary Peterson. And Mary's been my sister, the sister that I never had. We have been through some things. We've supported one another. She's been at most all of the things that I share as special in my life. I remember watching her hold my son when he was a little itty bitty boy, and that's when I realized Mary's part of my family because she was a friend at first, and she became a part of my family. So I finally got the sister that I was supposed to be for Durrell and Jeffrey. Okay, so I share that with you. A couple of friends who are like family here today. Marcus Jackson is here. Marcus is one of my dear friends. He most recently got hired at the University of Illinois. And I asked him to come here today because I wanted Marcus to experience Illinois State University. I wanted him to understand what Illinois State was about. And I just wanted him to know that, you know, the University of Illinois might be the land-grant institution. That's still debatable. It is the land-grant institution. But Illinois State undeniably is the first state school in the state of Illinois. So Marcus, you can go back to Champaign and tell the good people over there that imitation is the highest form of flattery and that we're often imitated, but we're never duplicated. Okay, so you make sure you go back and tell them that. My good friend David Lewis is here, and I met David here at ISU, and he's done a lot of cool things, and we're like family now. And I watch how he engages people and how engaged he is, especially in the lives of young people. And that's really important because that's what this is all about. It's about the young people that we get to inspire in the things that they do. 2 individuals who just continue to amaze me. I met them in grad school, and they're like my sisters because they're always supporting. They're always at these events, and that's Nancy Niebuhr-Parente, and then I mentioned Dawn Sanner-Polt. I'm going to have to get used to that. It's just been Dawn Sanner. Dawn and I were in graduate school together here at Illinois State as graduate assistants in that little bitty dinky building on the corner of Locust and Maine, and you know, sharing experiences. And now here we are 30 plus years later, and I'm going to tell you guys, you have something pretty special here in this woman and her leadership and what she's doing here at Illinois State. First of all, congratulations on your nuptials. Please tell Al that he was thoroughly background checked, and so he did pass the background check, so he's good to go. Nancy and I met in grad school, because I started in grad school part-time, and I met her and Gordy Jacobson, and we were like the three amigos hanging out, and she went on to work for Bloomington Parks and Recreation, and just these are the kinds of people that come into your life that make your life special and meaningful, and I really appreciate having Nancy and Dawn in my life for so many years. I want to thank the individuals who thought I was deserving of this award and who nominated me. I'm going to start with my dear friends Jenny Ward and also her son Wes. They thought enough about my experiences here at Illinois State and the work that I've done since then to nominate me, along with some other unbelievable people. Karen Aguirre, who's the president of ISU BCA, was part of the nomination process. Lindsay Vall, who's here, where's Lindsay? There's Lindsay. Lindsay was part of that nominations. I get a chance to work with her in my role on the board of directors for ISU BCA. Tony Bosley, our president of Brothers on Campus Incorporated, he was also a part of that process. And I thank all of you. But I must take a moment also to thank Steve and Sandi Adams, the namesakes of this Legacy Hall of Fame. I've known Steve for a number of years, but what Steve does not know, in many ways, he became my very, very first mentor at Illinois State University. I did not really know Steve from his early days working in the admissions office, but I knew him from his role as the voice of the Redbirds in Hancock Stadium and Horton Fieldhouse. My first home football game was on September 17th, 1977. The Redbirds were playing the Chippewas of Central Michigan University. How cool is that? Go figure. I heard the PA announcement, and I thought, boy, what a voice. Wow, how can I do that? I went back to my dorm, Wright Hall, and I started practicing because I wanted to be just like the voice that I heard. I remember watching my first ISU football game like it was yesterday, and it was more than 40 years ago, watching the likes of ISU Hall of Famers and NFL players like Estes Hood. Also watching individuals on the roster like Lewis Clayton, Nate Pagee, Tony Hammonds, Tyrone Woodgett, Canute Nelson, and my freshman classmates, Eric Tapley and Willie Board. This began what is now a 40-plus year relationship with ISU and also with the Brothers on Campus Incorporated. Joining me today are some of my BOC brothers, and you really know where you stand. But so I'm going to honor the individuals that are here. I mentioned Tony. My brother Durrell was actually a founder of the Brothers on Campus Incorporated, and another founder is here today, and I really appreciate him making a trip down from Chicago. Dr. Eric Kellogg is here, and I really now know where I stand with my brothers because there are about 15 more that are here, but they're not in the audience. They're out playing golf on the ISU golf course right now. So I truly know what I mean to them now, so I really understand that. That voice that I talked about that's in my head today, and you heard Steve, and he can still dial it up with the best of them. And every time I hear him speak, it just kind of raises the hair on my arms a little bit because it takes me back to 1977. When I saw Steve for the very first time at my first ISU basketball game, and he did the PA, introductions, I was thinking, how can that voice come out of that body? That was my first tall, blonde, thin, and I'm expecting to see this big guy who's just got this baritone kind of voice, but that was Steve, and he can still dial it up. Well, I did get my opportunity when I was at both Northern Illinois and later at CMU. I had a chance to do PA announcer for women's basketball and sometimes men's basketball. And of course, what would I do? I would imitate Steve. It's interesting. I haven't done it in a lot of years, but I'm gonna try to see if you might remember this. I'm gonna see if I can dial it up one last time. And it kind of goes like this. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. In behalf of Central Michigan University, welcome to the Dan Rose Arena. This is Chippewa basketball. Tonight's non-conference game features our guests from Normal, Illinois, the Redbirds of Illinois State University, and our Chippewas of Central Michigan University. Now let's meet tonight's starting lineups. Now, when you do stuff and nobody's around who knows you, you think you're going to get away with it. Well, that script that I just read, and that was a script I used at Northern Illinois and at Central Michigan, our women's basketball team's playing Illinois State, and I used that pregame introduction. After the game, many of you in this room know Tom LaMonica. Tom was a longtime sports information director. Tom walks across the floor, and I see him coming. And he walks up and he goes, "Nice poor man's job of Steve Adams." My thought, and I said to him and if you know anything about LaMonica, he could be a little irascible. I just said to him, if my name could be mentioned in the same sentence as Steve Adams, I'm good. I'm good. So who would know today that I would be being inducted into this Hall of Fame with Steve and Sandi's name etched in the history of this particular Hall of Fame. They say imitation is the highest form of flattery. When I was coming here, my first thought was, I hope Steve's not here, and I hope the police aren't here, because this has been like 40 years worth of grand larceny. Okay, stealing. We talked today about identity theft. I started stealing Steve's identity in the 70s before anybody recognized it as identity theft. So I never thought that this experience would support my almost 20 years of broadcast experience at Central Michigan University, traveling the country to great places like Boise, Idaho, Cheyenne, Wyoming, Wichita, Kansas. And yes, I think one of my proudest moments in my broadcast career was when I had a chance to sit courtside and broadcast the Central Michigan Illinois State game in the late 1990s. So I've been to some cool places. I've been to New York, LA, Miami, and those places too. But some of these other places just etch in your mind what college is about and what college athletics can do. My first job at Illinois State was in Lincoln Center in a dish room as a freshman. As a resident of Tri-Towers, 1167 Wright Hall. What a cool place. Had a chance to live in that residence hall with my best friend to this day. I was from high school and college, and we were just down here last month together, Kevin Kennedy. And Russell was my supervisor. Russell was was a retired Navy veteran. Russell had the big anchor tattoo on his arm, kind of a menacing look. He's pretty intimidating. I thought Russell was the meanest man at Illinois State University, only to find out that he was simply setting standards that I use today. He was demanding. He always sought perfection. And I'm thinking, how can you find perfection in a dish room? But you can find perfection in anything if you set standards. Nothing was ever good enough for Russell. However, I learned that the same things that he was teaching me were the same things that I learned from my parents. My mother would always say, leave it better than you found it. That's what Russell was saying. He was just saying it in his own unique way. I got involved in many things while I was here early on at Illinois State. I was employed right here it was not the Bone Student Center at that time, but I worked in Brayton Auditorium as an usher and as a student supervisor. And we think about our connections. My brother, Durrell, his dear friend Dave Hart from Amundsen High School in Chicago, Durrell sent me to him, and Kevin and I went, and he hired us. And we had a great, great, great time working the events. We did not know that we would become some of the most popular individuals on campus, because everybody was like, can you hook us up with free tickets? Can you let us in the side door? And the answer was no. And so we went from being popular to being not so popular, because we did our jobs and we took it very, very serious. As we start to think about the people that come into our lives, I didn't think he would be here, because the second meanest man on Illinois State's campus, I thought my freshman and sophomore year, was Mike Shermer. Yeah. Mike would come out of that office in the back, and he'd be barking with that baritone voice. And I was like, I didn't work for him, but I was scared to death of him. Just want to let you know that. But what I learned is I got to know Mike, and I got to know Mike better when I came back as a graduate assistant, and I was working for Diane Dahlman in campus recreation along with Dawn. And now you're understanding things. You understand what this is all about, and to see Mike as a part of this Hall of Fame, and I get the opportunity to share some time with him on the Student Affairs Fundraising Committee for the Redbird Rising campaign. This guy's a Redbird through and through. He aspires everything that being a Redbird is about. So despite the fact I'm not afraid of you anymore, but today that fear and that fear has turned into respect. So to be in this Hall of Fame with him is certainly something that's very, very special to me. A few other things, and then we're going to let you get out of here. A concert, or as a member of the Illinois State student body, my passion's always been sports. So I quickly became involved in intramural sports as a manager and a captain, putting together residence halls teams in softball and flag football and basketball, and who would know later that this would play an important part in shaping my future career. My mother did remind me after my freshman year, especially when my grades came out after my fall semester, that I came to ISU to get a degree, not to play all day. So after changing my major 3 times, I found my way my junior year to the Recreation and Parks Administration program, where I found my passion and what would become my life work. I met Dr. Larry Belknap, my first academic mentor. Dr. B got me on track academically. He fueled my passion in ways I never experienced, and he was a key reason that I'm here today. I thank Dr. B. He's always believed in me. He kept me challenged, and he later insisted that I go back to graduate school and get a graduate degree. He saw things in me that I never saw in myself. Dr. Milt Weisbecker, Uncle Milt, we called him. And some of you know who Milt Weisbecker is, a former athletic director and later a professor and the internship coordinator for the Recreation and Parks program. And you may know Milt's name. It's etched now as part of the Athletic Scholarship Fund here at Illinois State, which is named after Dr. Weisbecker. What people don't know is Dr. Weisbecker, along with a gentleman by the name of Dean Wallen, who's still at Central Michigan University today, helped to create the Disney College program. And a lot of people don't know that. And that program is serving college students internationally and giving students experiences that are launching careers in ways that they never could imagine. So when I think about the lessons that I learned from Dr. Weisbecker, he always said, Stan, there are 3 things that are the key to success: experience, experience, experience. And I've taken that with me as I talk to students, as I mentor students, as I speak to classes, as I talk about anything, because there's no substitute for experiences. It's a mainstay now in my values and something I truly believed in. Illinois State University defines so much of who I am. As a 17-year-old coming to ISU from the inner city, I never realized this would become a lifelong connection and that my experiences at ISU would be transformative. Some would say, how do you know this? What's the evidence that you have? My responses would be, I've checked every box. And it goes like this: experience living in a diverse community on campus, check. Learned about the importance of student engagement, check. Learned how to serve others, check. Had some of the very best experiences of my life, check. Found academic success, and more importantly, graduated from Illinois State University with a bachelor's degree and no debt, check. Met some of my very best friends in life, check. Found my little sister, who I never had to share a bathroom with, check. Saw my son Lamar, born right here in Normal, check. Saw him graduate from both Metcalf and University High School. Got a graduate assistantship from Illinois State and a free master's degree. Found the love of my life right here at Illinois State, check. Found my professional passion and purpose, check. have the opportunity to serve Illinois State University today. Check. But most importantly, I learned how to be a Redbird. Thank you for this tremendous honor. It is just a privilege to be here today. I thank God for this wonderful honor, and I finish with the words of my wife, Renee, as she accepted her own special award last summer. Camille and Diane, us being here today is not by happenstance or by coincidence, but truly by divine design. Thank you very much for this tremendous honor, and go Redbirds.
Yeah, don't forget that. Okay. All right, now we're going to welcome Hannah to the podium as she is going to introduce our final inductee, Camille Taylor. So let's welcome Hannah to the podium. Excuse me, Stan, you might be getting a call. Oh, thank you. Okay, all right. Might want to take that.
Camille Taylor, 78, is a retired educator, active community member, and social justice advocate. After graduating from high school in 1972, Taylor went to Illinois State University to major in special education. She left school for 2 years, got married, had a son, and returned to Illinois State in 1975 to resume her education. Taylor worked in various positions at Illinois State, such as residence hall front desk staff member and cashier in the Bone Student Center. While in class, her son Christopher attended the Illinois State University Child Care Center, and Taylor was asked to be a parent representative of the Child Care Board of Directors. Taylor received the Black Student Union's Academic Excellence Award prior to her graduation. She became employed by the Bloomington School District 87 as a behavior disorders teacher in the spring of 1978, and then by the Normal Unit 5 School District in the fall of 1978, where she remained for 35 years. Taylor returned to Illinois State to obtain her master's degree in school counseling and her certification in English as a second language while teaching in multiple schools in Unit 5. She taught in the elementary and junior high levels as a special education teacher, positive life skills teacher, and an at-risk interventionist. Taylor was a counselor during her last 12 years at Normal Community High School. She sponsored several student clubs such as Tomorrow's Teachers, Students Embracing Diversity, and the Gay Straight Alliance. As a non-tenured track faculty member at Illinois State, Taylor also taught classes part-time in the special education and curriculum and instruction departments. Taylor was an active member of the Unit 5 Education Association, the Illinois Education Association, and the National Education Association. She served in various capacities at the local and state level, such as UFEA President and Chief Negotiator. She was also appointed to the Governor's Commission on Discrimination and Hate Crimes, the State Teacher Certification Board, and the National Council for the Accreditation of Teacher Education. Taylor is passionate about equality and celebrating diversity. This has been the focus of her professional and community involvement. She has served on the boards of the Baby Fold, the YWCA, and the League of Women Voters. She currently serves as the chair of the YWCA Foundation Board and the co-chair of the Not in Our Town Steering Committee and the Not in Our School Education Committee. The mission is to stop hate, address bullying, and create a more inclusive and safe community. Taylor is an elder at First Christian Church and volunteers at the Bloomington Center for the Performing Arts. She's a 2001 YWCA Woman of Distinction for Education, winner of the City of Bloomington's Martin Luther King Jr. Award, the Illinois State University College of Education's Distinguished Alumni Award, and the IEA's Human and Civil Rights Award. Taylor lives in Bloomington, Illinois with her husband Arthur and her 93-year-old mother, Alma Samuels. Taylor has 3 children and 8 grandchildren. Please join me in congratulating Camille.
little picture, so. Okay, all right, you got this, all right, we got the program. Okay.
Good morning. It's very interesting when you walk in a room and the photographer is a student you had at Hudson Elementary School. The longer I live in this community, the more I see my students everywhere. They're the nurses and the bankers and the lawyers and the insurance people. They're all over the place, and that in itself is gratification when you see them in their careers and you know that their public education served them well, as mine did with me from Illinois State. You may have noticed when I walked up here I had a bag of Legos, and you're probably wondering, why did she bring a bag of Legos to this event? I had to put them up here. I hope I don't mess them up. It will become evident in a minute. And I'm a teacher and I have to use visuals. So I didn't know anything about this award, hadn't heard of it. And when I found out that I had been nominated for it, the first thing you want to find out is, who did that? And I found out that it was Dr. Danielle Miller-Schuster, wherever she is. She's out there, she is. And Dr. Aaron Thomas, and Angel Howard, and Anna Nepler, who is now at Eureka. And it blew me away that they had done that. And my husband knows that I do not like recognition. So it was, but the closer it got to the event, the more I felt really good about it. And hearing the stories of Diane and Stan and seeing all the people here today, meeting Steve and Sandi Adams, I am completely overwhelmed and very grateful. I do want to thank, in addition to the people that nominated me, the selection committee, and of course Steve and Sandi Adams for thinking enough of this university to establish this Hall of Fame. That's very special. And for Dr. Johnson and President Dietz and his wife, and for my student host, Hannah Costa, who I was thrilled when she reached out to me and told me she was an elementary education major. It was like, that's greatest profession on earth. Will always feel that way. I am abundantly blessed, a very blessed person. God has truly blessed me. And two of my biggest blessings are this man right here, Arthur Taylor. He is my life partner. I met him in the 2nd grade. So he is my longest friend in the world. And my mother is my other big blessing. She turned 93 last Saturday, April 6th, and she lives with us, and she is a huge blessing. For me to be, I will be 65 in October, and at my age, most of my friends do not have their mothers or fathers anymore. So when people learn that I still have my mother, they're really surprised. And my mother, I'm the youngest of 3 girls. My mother dropped out of high school. She got pregnant when she was a junior, I think, and got married at 16 and had my oldest sister at 17. And if you ask her today what she's proudest of for herself, she says, oh, no, I never did anything. I don't have an education like my daughters. I did nothing. And that truly hurts me because my mother did everything. She did everything. She taught me when I was very young to treat other people the way you want to be treated and that all people have worth, no matter who they are. She also told me never to be intimidated or afraid by people with titles. She said that everybody looks the same in their underwear, and that when they wake up in the morning, they all have bad breath and they smell. She told me this. So I have met people like President Obama and senators and different people, and I picture them in their underwear, and I'm not intimidated. So she truly gave all of her daughters great life lessons. So this first Lego represents the foundation. I realized as I prepared my remarks for today that I've actually been involved with ISU for every decade of my life. And I hadn't thought about that before. My oldest sister is 11 years older than me. Her name is Carmelita. She came here in 1961 when it was Illinois State Normal University. And when she came, she waited too long. She found out she didn't have enough money to get into the dorm. So she ended up in a boarding house for colored girls. That's what it was called at the time. It was on Locust Street. And I remember driving in the car, back of the car, it seemed like we were going to the ends of the earth. You came in those days on Beach Street, old Route 66, and we moved her to school. And I didn't know where this was. I was 6 and a half. I was going to be 7 in October. But I remember thinking, wow, this looks like it's kind of a nice place. And she had me come down for Little Siblings Weekend and various things. So those were my earlier memories of ISU, then ISNU. I remember when she moved into the dorm the next year, and they were talking about her moving in, she had to have a, quote, colored roommate. And it was because the dorm was segregated. And even though I didn't understand what that meant at the time, those things made impressions on me. And I think I remember thinking, why can't you just have whatever roommate you want? But I didn't really understand. So fast forward 11 years, it's 1972, I'm graduating from high school. But even before I graduated, when I first started high school, Arthur and I went to the same elementary school. And you had to take a test to go to your high school if you went to a Catholic high school. And I took the test, and I didn't do very well. It was a school called Academy of Our Lady on the south side of Chicago. And I remember the counselor saying, well, you can take our vocational classes, and you can be something like a secretary or a clerk. And I said, but no, I want to be a teacher. She said, oh, no, you can't do that because you didn't score well enough on the test. So I remember getting very upset, and I went home and I told my mom, and she called our elementary school, and the principal went with me to the school, and she told the counselor that our school did not have some of the things that some of the other students have. We didn't have a lot of science. We had no PE. We did calisthenics in the schoolyard. We didn't have a lot of the same things. And she said, but she's a very good student and she will work hard. You need to give her a chance. So she convinced them to give me a chance, and I was allowed to take the college prep classes, and of course I ended up here. But that always stuck in my mind, that if I had had no one to advocate for me, there's nothing wrong with being a secretary, don't get me wrong. But when I went to high school, I already knew I wanted to be a teacher. And she told me, you can't do that because of a score on a test. And I tucked that in my brain for much later. So I come to ISU because I wanted to be a teacher, and you start researching, you find out ISU is the best school in the country for special education and for regular education. So I came here, and different experience for my sister. Now the dorms are integrated, but you go through Preview ISU, and at that time they gave you a letter, and it had the name of your roommate on it with their address. And they encouraged you to write to them over the summer. And again, write to them over the summer. There was no email, there was no FaceTime, there was no texting. So I looked at her address and it said Metamora, Illinois. Now, it didn't take a rocket scientist to figure out, if you're from Chicago and you see this Metamora address, you're thinking, I don't think she's gonna be black. I don't think so. I could be wrong, because I couldn't even find Metamora when I got the map out of Illinois. I looked and I looked and I looked and I finally saw this little bitty dot near Peoria. And I was like, oh, that's where Metamora is. So I wrote her a letter. She wrote me back. And we started going back and forth. And we started talking about, what are you going to bring? And I'm going to bring this, and you're going to bring that. So one day, she drew a picture of herself, because she was very artistic, and she put blonde hair and blue eyes. So I had guessed that part right. So I drew a picture of myself, and I'm not an artist, but I shaded it in with a brown pencil. The next letter I got from her, which was kind of delayed, she told me that she was very sad, but her parents told her that she couldn't be my roommate because I was from Chicago and I was probably in a gang. And I wrote back to her and I said, I am from Chicago, but I've never been in a gang, and I hope that we can still be roommates, because at that point we had liked each other through our letters. So when I came to ISU the very first day, went to Witten. I was in Witten Hall. Didn't know when I opened the door if she was going to be there or somebody else was going to be there. Sure enough, she was there. Her parents were there. My parents were with me. The parents started talking. We went on the other side. We started talking, started pulling things out, and we decided to all go to dinner to Cinerax, which was a buffet on the edge of town. Anybody remember Cinerax? All right, that was a great buffet. It was at the south end of town where the Dairy Queen is now, on South Main Street, and it had a drive-in theater and a buffet. And if you had a big purse, you could stuff chicken breasts and chicken legs. You could put all kind of things so that you could eat in your purse. So they took us back to the dorm. Parents dropped us off. They left, and we began our life as an integrated roommates. It was odd that we both came here engaged. That's a long story. You don't want to hear it. But I was engaged to someone that was in the Navy. She was engaged to a guy in the Air Force. And some of the first, I was supposed to put my other one here. This was for my freshman year. So that's my second decade. So Elton John came. I remember going to Elton John concert. Rocket Man was his big hit. I was thrilled. Going to basketball games at Horton Fieldhouse to see Doug Collins, who had just gone to the Olympics in the summer of '72, came back, big man on campus, and he played his last year under Coach Will Robinson. So now when I come out of Redbird Arena and I see that statue of them, I'm going, ooh, I'm old. Yeah. So I remember when they were there. I got to vote in 1972. That was when 18-year-olds got the vote for the first time. I voted for Normal to become wet because it was a dry town in 1972. There was no, well, I can't say there was no drinking. You could not, that would be a big lie. You could not buy alcohol in Normal, so you had to go over to Bloomington if you wanted to buy alcohol and bring it back. So all of us 18-year-olds, because now you could have beer and wine as an 18-year-old, we got to vote and we made Normal wet. We also voted for president for the first time. For the first time in my life, I hitchhiked. I had never, of course, done that in Chicago. That's not advisable. But I played flag football for the first time with the people on my floor, and we hitchhiked a ride from Witten to Gregory Street out by the president's office to play flag football, and we would hitch a ride back. I never told my mother to this day. She does not know I hitchhiked on the back of a pickup truck. She would be mortified. So other firsts, I'm trying to think what else, but just all these things, new experiences became a part of my life. Okay, so I had 3 jobs. I was a bibliographical searcher at Milner Library. I don't know what that is. You search for bibliographies, I think. I don't know. I had cards and I went around, I had to look up stuff. I was a receptionist at Whitten Hall, and that was a great job. And I was a cashier at the Cage. Now, for those of you who don't remember the Cage was upstairs where the Prairie Room is, and you went through a line like a cafeteria, you got your food, you took it in and sat down, and some people's favorite spots was the back part where the plants are. If you really wanted to have quiet, peace and quiet, you'd go back there. Well, this one professor came through my line every day, and he always spoke to me. His name was Dr. Saul Schulman, and I think he now has a building named after him in the science department. Is that correct? Or something, a wing? And he was just very friendly. Fast forward, that'll be significant later. I came back, left school, I got married, I had my son. We lived in, my ex-husband was in the Navy, so we were stationed in Pearl Harbor in Hawaii. I came back in '75. I had 34 hours. I had taken 17 hours both semesters as a freshman, and I was determined to finish. My mother, however, told me when she found out that I was getting married and having my son at 19, she said, you'll never be able to finish. And I don't know to this day if she told me that because she really believed it, or if she told me that because she knows if she tells me I can't do something, that I will do something. But when she told me that, I got furious. And I said, I will too finish, you'll see. And I did. And she was at my graduation, and I was very proud. But when I came back with my son and my husband, we had a whole different experience as a student. We found out about Cardinal Court and married student housing. We had no money, and there were 2 places you could live, Cardinal Court, down Gregory Street, or Shelbourne Apartments. Cardinal Court was $105 for 2 bedrooms, and Shelbourne was $145. And we were like, oh no, we can't. Shelbourne was newer and nicer, but we didn't have $145. We can't do that. We didn't even have $105. So we got into Cardinal Court, one of the best experiences we could have ever had. All the buildings were by letters, and we lived in Building I, apartment 100, and we hit the jackpot because our building was right across from the laundromat. And if you lived right across from the laundromat, that was like heaven, because all you had to do was carry your clothes over there, across the street. That was great. But we met people from all over the world. In my building alone, we had people from Ethiopia, from India, and just everywhere. And my child got to play with kids from all over the world. And it was one of those things where my mom always said, treat people the way you want to be treated, and all people have worth. And there I was in the middle of the world, right at I-100 Cardinal Court. And so that lesson again played out. I also learned that ISU had childcare for married students. So my son was able to go to the Turner Child Care Center and then later to Fairchild. And one day, one of the teachers said, would you like to be the parent representative on the child care board of directors? And I was like, what's that? And she explained that they make decisions for the child care and they needed a parent. So I said, sure. I found out when I did that decisions are made for people at the table. And if you're not at the table, you're not able to make decisions, to help make decisions. And that was my first lesson in that. I got to speak up for parents and give the parents' perspective as they were making decisions for the child care center, and that proved later to be a very valuable experience. So my that Lego of coming back as a married student was completely different from my first other Lego as a single student, and going to the games and things like that, being free and crazy. Then I'll fast forward to, the other big thing and I forgot this when I was a freshman. They were building something right across from Witten. And Stan and I had a conversation before I came in here. I told him that Hamilton, Witten, and Akincobe were called the Virgin Islands, which is a joke. But anyway, and Stan said, no, only Akincobe. I said, no, all four of them. It was all female. And he was like, no, guys were at Witten. I said, not in 1972 they weren't. So we watched this thing being built across the street from Witten that whole time. And finally they put a sign out and it said, Burger King. And we were thrilled because we had Avanti's and now a Burger King. The other thing that happened was this building opened up in the spring of '73. So until that time, everything was in the quad. And we waited with great anticipation for them to open up this building, Milner Library, which was huge compared to the other library we had on campus. And I read in the paper a few weeks ago when the students came back from spring break and they showed them all coming into the building and the new restaurants and how excited they were. That was us in 1973 coming into this building brand spanking new. So it's been very gratifying to me to see the renovations and the facelift and really understand that, well, yeah, I guess it's time because that was a long time ago. This building's been under a lot of bodies and a lot of traffic for all those years. Dr. Schulman ended up becoming an influence in my life because after I started teaching in Unit 5, we bought a home on Fairchild Street. And one day I was in my backyard, and he was in his backyard. And I looked up and I said, Dr. Schulman? And he said, Camille? I said, what are you doing there? He said, this is my house. I said, that's my house. So it was very strange, but we reconnected again. And he was always very encouraging to me when I was a single student, and then again as I had graduated and had started my job. So another Lego needs to come on. I'm working at Parkside Junior High with learning disability students, and some students had emotional issues, and one of my students commits suicide. He hung himself on the roof of his home in Hudson, and his parents came home to find him there. He was adopted from the baby fold, had a lot of emotional problems, and the kids at school made fun of him. And the bullying and that thing, treating other people differently has always been an issue for me. And I went back to school to get my counseling degree because my fellow LD teacher and I thought, what did we do? Why didn't we see this? Why didn't we know that he was this depressed? How did we miss this? So that Legos for coming back and getting my master's degree. There was a teacher, Tom Caldwell, in special ed. When you did a paper for Tom and you got it back, he had a face with a halo over the head. And for whatever reason, I guess because I'm visual, every time I saw those halos in the smiley face, it encouraged me to want to do better because I wanted to get more smiley faces and halos. Even as an adult, it made a big difference to me. So fast forward, getting my job at got my master's in counseling, and then my last 12 years at Normal Community as a counselor. And hearing people, I had one counselor who I replaced, who I heard used to hide it hurts me to this day, she hid the catalogs for U of I and would only give them out to people that she thought were worthy. So if someone came in and asked for the catalog and application for U of I, if she didn't think that they were U of I material, she would say we didn't have any. And that's the stories that I heard. And I replaced her, And when I started giving out applications to whoever asked for an application, the administrative assistant in our office said, are you sure you can do that? I'm like, absolutely, yeah. But that my brain went back to my experience in high school when I was told what I couldn't be, and the audacity of anyone to tell someone what you can't be. Now, realistically, most of us don't go to Harvard. I understand this. But you can start at a 2-year school and work your way to a 4-year school, and maybe you might end up at Harvard. Who knows what you're going to be? None of us are what we were at 17, I hope. Most of us have moved on and grown and maybe gotten a more serious appreciation for education. And we have to give grace to people and allow them to be who they are. So ISU, again, I came back. I was the English language learner counselor at Normal Community, and I didn't know anything about that. There was a cohort of Unit 5 teachers that were studying to be English language learners because their school at Brigham was going to be the bilingual school, and I jumped on with them and got my ELL degree or certification. So that was another Lego in connection with ISU. Then coming over here, Steve reminded me that every fall we did the updates for the counselors on what's new and exciting in colleges, and we had to we sat in Braden Auditorium, and all the counselors from all over were there. So I never really left this place, and my husband and I, we go to football games and basketball games and concerts and speeches, lectures, and then on Common Ground. How many do I have here? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay, this is 6. Arlene Jose, who was the director of dining at ISU, was a friend of mine. We had been on the board together at the YWCA. She said, you're an alumni of ISU, aren't you? I said, yes. She said, you should come to On Common Grounds. I'm like, what's that? Little did I know, it was not only a free dinner, it was a chance to see great people like Angela Davis, who in the 70s with the big fro, or in the 60s, we were like, whoa. Or Dr. Michael Eric Dyson, who was the speaker this year, Danny Glover, Van Jones, people that you only see on TV were like right here. And you got to meet all these students who are at the beginning of their lives at ISU and talk to them about what it was like in the day. And they were actually interested to hear you share stories of how your social security number was used to find out your test scores and plant it right there in the hall at Schrader Hall. And I'm not talking about the last 4 digits, people. Your entire social security number was on the hall on green paper, that printout paper, and you found your social security number, you went over and saw your grade. Right there. They also were amazed to hear my stories about the party line. Like, what's a party line? Where you picked up the phone in your dorm room and somebody's talking, so you put it down, you wait, then you pick it up again and you say, they're still talking, okay, so then you, will you be getting off soon? And they might say yes, or they might say something else that wasn't nice, and you put the phone down, and you had to wait to be able to use the phone. And the kids are looking at me like, are you from the planet Xenon? What are you talking about? And even when I mentioned Horton Fieldhouse, this last On Common Grounds, the 2 girls we were talking to, where's Horton Fieldhouse? I said, it's right there. We were in Redbird Arena, and I said, you have to pass Horton Fieldhouse to get here. He's like, oh, we never noticed it. So every year I go to this, although I'm thrilled to death, I have to tell you, I feel older and older and older. But the point is, these Legos represent every decade of my life, from the time I was 6.5 to now almost 65 years old, and the important role that this university has played in my life as well as all of your lives and our community's lives. Because even if people don't come to ISU, ISU is sponsoring and promoting things for other people and paying for things in the community. What would this community be like if there was no ISU? I don't know. It would not be the same. So I am eternally grateful. It feels weird to know that my picture's going to be out there with my story, because I don't feel like I've done any more than anybody else. But I am very grateful. Thank you.
Okay, we've come to the end of our program. All right. I want to thank you all for joining us today for the Steve and Sandy Adams Legacy Hall of Fame ceremony and for recognizing the achievements of Diane, Stan, and Camille. Again, thank you all. You are such a welcoming class of inductees this year. And on a personal note, I want to thank each of you because 3 years ago, you all welcomed me to this community. And I remember meeting with the Taylors at the Starbucks near my apartment, all right, to talk about not in our town. Remember that? Stan, we had the first cookout, Brothers on Campus, all right, before I even started, right? That August, right? So that was great. And then Diane, thanks so much. I called you and said, we got some ideas about Greek life on campus. Can you serve? And you were ready to jump right back in. So you all are outstanding. Thanks for everything that you do for our community. And again, thank you all. Let's recognize our honorees today. And while we're still standing, let's acknowledge, again, Steve and Sandy for actually being here and joining us today. Outstanding. Thank you so much. All right. Thank you all. Mix and mingle and enjoy the rest of your afternoon. Thank you very much.